Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we're exploring the history behind the 4th of July. This is the story of a date that became far more than a mark on the calendar. It began with a decision that turned protest into revolution. It grew into a national memory that people still argue over today. Behind the celebration is a document written under pressure. Its words carried danger for the people who supported it. Its promise also reached further than many of its authors allowed. That is what makes this story so powerful. It is not only about independence. It is about the meaning of freedom and how that meaning kept changing. The 4th of July asks us to look closely at America's beginning. It reveals courage. It reveals contradiction. It reveals how a single anniversary can hold both pride and unfinished questions. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your breathing to slow. And as the day begins to fade away, join me as we explore the hidden history behind the 4th of July together. Let's begin. The 4th of July is the day Americans remember the moment their country first declared independence. Long ago, the land that became the United States was made up of 13 British colonies. These colonies were ruled by Britain, but many people living there believed they should have a stronger voice in their own government. Over time, arguments about taxes, laws, rights, and power grew more serious. What began as protest slowly became revolution. In 1776, colonial leaders gathered in Philadelphia and approved the Declaration of Independence. This document explained why the colonies were breaking away from Britain. It did not end the war. It did not make victory certain, but it gave the struggle a clear meaning. The fighting continued for years after that. Soldiers marched, families waited, and the future of the new country remained uncertain. Eventually, with help from France, the Americans won the war, and Britain recognized their independence. So the 4th of July is not the day the war ended. It is the day America publicly announced what it hoped to become. A new country, built around the idea of liberty, and still trying to understand the full meaning of that promise. Independence was declared on July the 2nd, not July 4th. When the Continental Congress voted to break from Britain, the decisive moment came 2 days before the date Americans now celebrate. On that earlier day, delegates approved Richard Henry Lee's resolution stating that the United Colonies were free and independent states. That vote changed the political reality. The later date became famous because Congress approved the written explanation that announced the choice to the world. This small calendar twist is more than trivia. It reveals how history often remembers the symbol rather than the turning point. John Adams understood the importance of the vote at once. He believed future generations would mark it with grand public joy. In one sense, he was right about the celebration and wrong about the date. The nation's birthday became attached to the document that explained independence rather than the vote that made it official. Behind the fireworks is a quieter fact. America chose separation before it published its reasons. The Declaration was approved before many Americans ever heard about it. News traveled slowly in the summer of 1776. There was no instant broadcast, no national announcement heard at once, and no single crowd that learned the news together. The decision had to move by horse, ship, printed sheet, and spoken report. A person in Philadelphia might hear almost immediately, while someone in a distant town waited days or longer. This delay gave independence an unusual shape. It did not arrive as one shared moment. It spread outward through the colonies like a message-gathering force. Printers became essential because their presses turned congressional action into public knowledge. Couriers carried copies through heat, bad roads, and wartime uncertainty. In taverns, churches, public squares, and meeting houses, people listened as the words were read aloud. Some cheered. Some worried. Some understood that everything had changed. The country began not with one roar, but with many separate awakenings. Each place had its own first encounter with the news. John Adams expected July 2nd to become America's great anniversary. To Adams, the day of the independence vote was the day future citizens should remember. He wrote to Abigail with a sense of astonishment, imagining public celebration across generations. His vision was vivid because he understood the size of what had just happened. The colonies had crossed a line that could not easily be uncrossed. He pictured commemoration with ceremony, public devotion, and bright displays of joy. Yet national memory chose differently. The approved text of the Declaration carried the date that became sacred. That shift shows how powerful documents can be in shaping public imagination. A vote may alter the law, but words can capture the heart. Adams lived long enough to see the 4th becoming the date people honored. There is something almost human in the mismatch. A founder looked ahead and saw the future clearly, except for one crucial detail. The celebration he predicted came true, just not on the day he expected. The famous signatures appeared weeks after the Declaration was adopted. The image most people carry is dramatic and immediate. Delegates gather, approve independence, and sign the great parchment at once. The real process was slower and more practical. Congress first approved the Declaration as a public statement. After that, a formal handwritten copy was prepared for signing. Many names were added later, not during the moment most people imagine. This matters because it changes the scene in our minds. The founding was not a single theatrical instant. It was a sequence of votes, edits, printing, copying, and dangerous commitment. Signing the parchment still took courage, but it belonged to a continuing process rather than one frozen afternoon. Some delegates were present for the vote. Others signed after arriving or after receiving permission from their colonies. The famous document became an object of memory after the political break had already occurred. The signature page is not less powerful for this. It is more revealing. The first public readings turned treason into a shared national moment. Before people could unite around independence, they had to hear the words that justified it. Public readings made the congressional decision real for ordinary listeners. A printed sheet became a voice in the air. Crowds gathered as officials, officers, or local leaders read the text aloud. The experience must have felt electric because the argument was aimed beyond Congress. It accused the king, defended resistance, and explained why separation had become necessary. Hearing those claims in public was a bold act. Under British law, rebellion against the Crown could be punished with terrible severity. Yet the readings invited whole communities into the risk. Once the words were spoken before witnesses, independence was no longer just a closed-room decision. It entered streets and squares. It became something people could cheer, debate, fear, or carry home in memory. The moment transformed listeners into participants. Treason, spoken together, began to sound like the birth of a country. A powerful anti-slavery passage was removed from Jefferson's original draft. One of the most striking deleted sections condemned the slave trade and blamed the king for sustaining it. The passage was morally charged, but it also exposed a deep contradiction inside the independence movement. Several colonies depended heavily on slavery, and delegates from those places would not support wording that threatened their interests or implicated them too directly. Northern merchants had also profited from the trade. Removing the passage helped preserve agreement, but it left a silence that would echo through American history. The final declaration spoke of equality while avoiding a direct challenge to the system that denied freedom to hundreds of thousands of people. This omission is not a side note. It shows how founding ideals were constrained by political reality and human failure. The deleted words remind us that the revolution contained arguments about liberty that were larger than its leaders were willing to fulfill. The nation began with a promise and a wound. Fireworks became patriotic because John Adams imagined celebrations with illuminations. Adams had a remarkable instinct for ritual. After the vote for independence, he imagined future celebrations filled with public joy and brilliant displays. The word illumination mattered because 18th century celebrations often used light to mark great occasions. Candles, bonfires, and fireworks carried messages before modern media existed. They made a political idea visible after dark. Fireworks already had a long history in Europe, where rulers used them to display power and glory. Americans gave the spectacle a new meaning. Instead of honoring a king, sparks in the sky could honor a republic. That shift is quietly radical. A tradition once tied to monarchy became an expression of civic belonging. The crackle, smoke, and color helped people feel that independence was not only a legal condition. It was something shared by the crowd, seen by children, and remembered by the senses. Every burst overhead carries a small echo of that early desire to make liberty visible. The Declaration explained independence, but it did not create the war. By the time Congress approved the text, fighting had already been underway for more than a year. Shots had been fired at Lexington and Concord. Boston had endured siege. Armed conflict had moved from protest into open struggle. The document did not begin the violence. It gave the conflict a new purpose. Before independence, many colonists still claimed they were defending traditional rights inside the British Empire. After the Declaration, the argument changed completely. The goal was no longer repair. It was separation. That difference was enormous. Armies could now fight for a new political future rather than a restoration of old protections. Foreign powers could also understand the conflict as a bid for nationhood. The document turned scattered resistance into a formal cause. It did not load the first musket or summon the first militia. It named what the war had become, and in doing so, gave the struggle a sharper meaning. King George III became the Declaration's central accused figure. The document aimed its most serious charges at the monarch himself. That choice gave the argument a clear human target. Instead of presenting independence as an abstract dispute with Parliament or imperial administration, the text described a king who had violated the duties of rulership. To 18th century readers, this was a powerful legal and moral move. A ruler was expected to protect the welfare of his subjects. If he became destructive to their rights, resistance could be framed as justified. The list of grievances built the case step by step. Each accusation added pressure to the conclusion that separation was necessary. This focus also simplified a complex imperial crisis for public understanding. People could picture authority in the figure of the crown. The king became the symbol of everything colonists believed had gone wrong. The charge was dangerous and unforgettable. A people who once toasted their monarch now declared him unfit to rule them. The 4th of July began as a risky act of rebellion. Modern celebrations can make the founding feel safe and inevitable. In the summer of 1776, nothing was safe and nothing was guaranteed. The British Empire was powerful. Its navy dominated the seas. Its armies could threaten major cities. The colonists had no certainty that their cause would survive. Supporting independence meant stepping into danger with no clear ending. Leaders knew that failure could bring punishment, disgrace, or worse. Ordinary people also faced consequences. War disrupted trade, divided families, damaged towns, and forced hard choices about loyalty. That is why the holiday's origin has such force. It was not born from comfort. It came from a moment when people decided that the risks of submission felt greater than the risks of revolt. The later music and parades can hide the fear beneath the story. At the beginning, the 4th was not nostalgia. It was a public declaration made under the shadow of war. The holiday remembers a document that could have cost lives. The declaration was not merely a statement of ideals. It was evidence. Anyone whose name, office, or public support became attached to independence could be treated as an enemy of the crown. That reality gives the document a sharper edge. The language may sound polished today, but it carried immediate danger when first released. Printers who produced copies were not handling harmless paper. Messengers who delivered them were spreading rebellion. Leaders who defended its claims were committing themselves before the world. The final sentence pledged lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. Those were not decorative words. They described the price that defeat might demand. Some signers would suffer wartime losses. Many endured long separation from home. All lived with the possibility that the cause might collapse. The document survived as a national treasure because independence succeeded. Had the war ended differently, the same paper might have been remembered as a record of doomed defiance. The Continental Congress voted for independence inside Pennsylvania's State House. The building, later called Independence Hall, was not created as a shrine. It was a working seat of government in Philadelphia. Inside its rooms, delegates argued through heat, pressure, and uncertainty. The surroundings were not grand in the way people might imagine a national birthplace today. There were desks, papers, local officials, and practical concerns. That ordinary setting makes the decision more striking. A room built for colonial governance became the place where a new political order was declared. The building had already seen debates over rights and war. It would later witness the drafting of another founding document, which deepened its place in national memory. But in that summer, no one could know how sacred the site would become. They were not standing inside a monument. They were working through a crisis. History often begins that way, not with marble and ceremony, but with tired people making irreversible choices in a crowded room. Richard Henry Lee introduced the resolution that made independence possible. Before Congress could approve a declaration, someone had to put the central question into formal words. Lee of Virginia did exactly that. His resolution stated that the colonies were free and independent states, released from allegiance to the British Crown. It was direct, bold, and impossible to misunderstand. The motion forced Congress to confront the issue openly. Many delegates had moved toward independence in private thought, but political bodies act through proposals and votes. Lee's role is sometimes overshadowed because Jefferson wrote the famous explanation. Yet without the resolution, there would have been no decision for the Declaration to justify. His action reflected a larger shift in Virginia and other colonies, where instructions from local governments began to support full separation. The road to independence required more than eloquent language. It required procedural courage. Lee gave Congress the sentence that opened the door. After that, delay became harder and history moved faster. Thomas Jefferson was chosen to draft because of his graceful writing. Jefferson was young compared with some of the other leading figures. but his pen had already earned respect. He could turn political argument into language that sounded clear, elevated, and memorable. That skill mattered because the Declaration had to do more than record a decision. It needed to persuade readers beyond the room where it was approved. Congress wanted a statement that could explain the break to Americans, to Britain, and to possible allies abroad. Jefferson drew from familiar ideas about rights, government, and consent, then arranged them with unusual force. His talent lay partly in making radical claims sound reasonable. He could compress a political philosophy into sentences that ordinary people would remember. The draft was not produced in isolation from the age around him. It carried influences from earlier declarations, colonial disputes, and Enlightenment thought. Still, his style helped give the American cause its most enduring voice. The Declaration's first draft accused Britain of waging cruel war. Jefferson's early version contained language that was even more heated than the final text. He wanted to present the British government as not only unjust, but brutal in the conduct of conflict. The colonies had already experienced violence, disruption, and fear. Military occupation and coastal attacks gave the accusation emotional weight. In wartime, words had to carry the force of lived experience. The draft sought to show that reconciliation was no longer realistic because the empire had treated its own subjects as enemies. Congress revised the text, but the final version still preserved a strong sense of injury. The grievances were not random complaints. They formed a pattern meant to prove systematic abuse. By describing war as cruel, Jefferson framed independence as self-preservation rather than ambition. The colonists were not simply choosing a new flag. They were claiming that the old relationship had become dangerous. That argument helped turn separation into moral necessity. Congress edited Jefferson's draft before approving the final declaration. The famous text was not the work of one untouched genius. It passed through debate, revision, and collective judgment. Delegates cut phrases, softened claims, changed wording, and removed sections they believed would weaken unity. Jefferson later felt wounded by some of the edits, but the process reveals something essential about the founding. The Declaration had to speak for 13 colonies with different economies, fears, and political cultures. A draft that pleased one group might alarm another. The final document became stronger politically because it was shaped to hold a fragile coalition together. Every revision carried a calculation. Some words were kept because they stirred conviction. Others disappeared because they threatened agreement. This editing process also explains why the document has both soaring ideals and painful silences. It emerged from compromise as well as conviction. The result was a public voice that sounded unified, even though it had been hammered into shape by disagreement. Benjamin Franklin softened one famous phrase with a sharper edit. Franklin's genius often showed itself through small changes. During the drafting process, he suggested a revision to Jefferson's wording about truths. The alteration made the sentence less dependent on personal assertion and more universal in tone. That kind of edit may seem tiny, but famous political language depends on precision. A single word can make an idea feel narrow or timeless. Franklin had spent much of his life as a printer, writer, scientist, diplomat, and observer of human nature. He understood how phrases landed in the ear. His touch helped make the Declaration sound less like one man's claim and more like a principle that could stand before the world. This is the quiet craft behind history. Great documents are not only built from grand ideas. They are shaped by rhythm, emphasis, and judgment. Franklin's contribution reminds us that revolutions need editors as well as speakers, and sometimes the smallest adjustment carries enormous power. John Adams defended independence with fierce arguments behind closed doors. Adams was not the main stylist of the Declaration, but he was one of independence's most relentless advocates. In congressional debate, he argued with intensity for separation. His influence came from stamina, legal skill, and a willingness to confront hesitation directly. Many delegates feared moving too quickly. Some still hoped for reconciliation. Others worried about military weakness or uncertain public support. Adams pushed against these doubts. He believed the colonies had already reached the point where submission would be dishonorable and dangerous. His work was not always glamorous, because persuasion inside committees and debates leaves fewer famous artifacts than a signed parchment. Yet decisions often turn on exactly that kind of labor. Adams helped create the conditions in which Jefferson's words could be adopted. He was force where Jefferson was voice. The revolution needed both. Without Adams pressing the argument in the room, the elegant language might never have become the official language of a new political reality. Roger Sherman helped create both the Declaration and the Constitution. Sherman stands out because his public life touched multiple foundations of the United States. He served on the committee that prepared the Declaration and later played a central role at the Constitutional Convention. His career connected the act of separation with the harder task of building a workable government. That makes him one of the most quietly important figures of the founding era. He was not known for polished glamour. He was respected for steadiness, practical judgment, and deep experience in public affairs. During the later convention, his support for compromise helped address the dangerous conflict between large and small states. This long arc matters because independence alone did not create a functioning nation. A successful republic needed institutions, representation, and rules, but could survive disagreement. Sherman's life shows that founding was not one event. It was a chain of difficult achievements. First came the break. Then came the design of a government strong enough to endure. Robert Livingston helped draft the Declaration, but never signed it. Livingston's absence from the signature page makes his story easy to miss. He served on the committee assigned to prepare the Declaration, which placed him close to one of the most famous documents in American history. Yet he was called away before the final signing and did not add his name to the parchment. This creates a fascinating divide between contribution and memory. People often remember the signers because their names appear on the celebrated artifact. Livingston helped shape the process, but vanished from the iconic image. His later career remained important. As a diplomat, he helped negotiate the Louisiana Purchase, which transformed the size and future of the United States. He also administered the presidential oath to George Washington at the first inauguration. His life reminds us that history is bigger than the objects displayed behind glass. Some figures stand just outside the frame, even when their work helped create the frame itself. The Committee of Five shaped America's most famous political document. Congress assigned 5 men to prepare the statement explaining independence. The group included Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, Sherman, and Livingston. Each brought a different kind of authority to the task. Jefferson became the principal writer, but the committee gave the draft political weight before the full Congress examined it. This structure mattered because the Declaration needed to seem more than personal opinion. It had to carry the seriousness of collective judgment. The committee's work also shows how revolutionary leadership depended on collaboration. Some members offered edits. Others lent credibility. All helped move the document from idea toward adoption. The group represented different colonies and different strengths, which made the final statement easier to defend before Congress. Even the most famous sentences emerged from a process shaped by many hands. The Declaration feels singular because its voice is so confident. Behind that confidence was a committee trying to turn a dangerous decision into a persuasive national argument. The colonies became states before the word nation felt certain. When independence moved from argument to action, the old colonial identity did not vanish in a single breath. People still thought first of Virginia, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, or South Carolina. Each colony had its own government, habits, economy, and local loyalties. The word state carried a serious meaning. It suggested political authority that no longer came from a king across the Atlantic. This was a startling transformation. Former colonies had to imagine themselves as independent political communities while also trying to cooperate in war. The larger union remained fragile because nobody yet knew exactly what kind of country would emerge. Would these states act like close partners or almost like separate nations joined by necessity? That uncertainty shaped every debate that followed. Independence was not simply the creation of one new country. It was the creation of several new states trying to survive together. America began with unity, but also with a deep fear of centralized power. New York hesitated before supporting independence with the other colonies. New York's delegates were not eager to act without clear instructions from home. Their colony was politically complicated, militarily exposed, and deeply divided. British forces were expected to target the region because its harbor and river routes made it strategically valuable. Many residents also had commercial ties to the empire, and loyalist feeling was strong in some communities. So when Congress moved toward independence, New York held back from giving immediate approval. That hesitation did not necessarily mean rejection. It reflected caution during a moment when a wrong choice could bring disaster. The colony's delegates needed authority from their provincial leaders before joining the final commitment. Once that support arrived, New York aligned with the others. The delay shows how unity was made through pressure and persuasion, not automatic agreement. The colonies did not leap together in perfect rhythm. Some stepped forward first. Others waited until the ground beneath them felt firm enough to bear the weight. The final vote revealed unity that had taken months to build. By the time Congress acted, agreement had been slowly assembled through letters, local meetings, pamphlets, military news, and colonial instructions. Independence did not appear suddenly as a single bold idea. It grew as trusting reconciliation collapsed. Each colony had to wrestle with its own doubts and pressures. Delegates needed to know whether their people would support a break. They also had to consider whether the war could be won without a formal declaration. The final decision was powerful because it revealed that separate political communities had reached the same conclusion. This unity was not effortless. It had been argued into existence. Behind the vote stood months of fear, anger, news from battlefields, and shifting public opinion. When the moment came, it suggested that the cause had become larger than any one colony. The achievement was not only independence from Britain. It was the discovery that these divided places could speak with one voice. The declaration announced legal separation from Britain to the world. The document was written for more than domestic inspiration. It acted like a formal notice in the language of 18th century diplomacy. The colonies needed other powers to understand that they were no longer merely rebellious subjects asking for better treatment. They were claiming a new status among nations. This mattered because foreign recognition could change the course of the war. A people fighting alone might be crushed. A people seen as an emerging nation might gain allies, loans, supplies, and legitimacy. The declaration therefore had to sound serious, reasoned, and lawful. It presented a case that independence was justified by repeated injury and by principles about government itself. It spoke beyond American towns and battlefields. It addressed the wider world. In that sense, the document was both a birth announcement and a legal argument. It told kings, ministers, and diplomats that a new political actor had stepped onto the stage. The document borrowed ideas from Enlightenment thinkers and colonial grievances. Its power came from combining philosophy with lived complaint. The language of natural rights drew from a wider world of political thought that questioned absolute authority and emphasized consent. Yet the Declaration was not only a classroom essay about government. It was rooted in years of colonial anger over laws, taxes, military presence, court disputes, and booked self-rule. That mixture gave the text unusual strength. The ideals lifted the argument above local frustration. The grievances anchored the ideals in concrete experience. A reader could see both the principle and the reason for action. This balance helped the document travel across time. Pure theory might have felt distant. A mere list of complaints might have felt temporary. Together, they created something larger. The Declaration turned colonial resistance into a universal argument about power and rights. It was specific enough for its moment, yet broad enough to inspire people who lived far beyond it. Natural rights became the moral heart of the Declaration's argument. The deepest claim was that certain rights do not come from rulers. They belong to human beings before governments are formed. That idea changed the tone of the entire document. If rights were merely gifts from the crown, then the colonies could only beg for better treatment. If rights existed by nature, then government had a duty to protect them. When authority became destructive, resistance could be framed as moral defense. This reasoning gave independence a foundation that reached beyond one dispute. It transformed political separation into a claim about human dignity. The argument was also dangerous because it invited future generations to measure the new nation against its own words. Once a country declares that rights are inherent, people excluded from those rights can point back to the promise. That is why the Declaration never stayed frozen in the 18th century. Its moral language kept moving forward, pressing against every contradiction it exposed. The phrase, "all men are created equal," carried unfinished meaning. Few lines in world history have been more celebrated, contested, and reinterpreted. In its original setting, the phrase asserted equality against inherited hierarchy and royal privilege. It rejected the idea that some people were born with a natural right to rule others. Yet its reach was limited by the society that proclaimed it. Many groups were left outside full political recognition. That tension gave the words a strange future. They could be used by those in power as a founding ideal, and by those denied power as a demand for justice. The phrase became a tool for argument because it sounded broader than the conditions of its birth. It did not settle equality. It opened a struggle over what equality required. That is why the line still feels alive. It is not only remembered as a sentence from the past, it has become a challenge that each generation inherits and must answer. Many Americans celebrated liberty while slavery still shaped the nation. The contradiction was present from the beginning. People praised freedom in public language, while human bondage remained woven into law, wealth, agriculture, trade, and daily life. This was not a small inconsistency hidden at the edges. It shaped the economy and politics of several states, and it influenced the compromises leaders were willing to make. Some Americans recognized the contradiction immediately. Enslaved people understood it with painful clarity. Free black communities, religious reformers, and anti-slavery voices would later use revolutionary language to expose the gap between national ideals and lived reality. The revolution weakened slavery in some places, but protected it in others. That uneven legacy makes the 4th of July more complicated and more important. The holiday celebrates a real break from empire. It also asks why the language of liberty did not free everyone. To understand the founding honestly is to hold both truths at once without letting either erase the other. Abigail Adams urged her husband to remember women's rights. In a famous letter, Abigail Adams pressed John Adams to think beyond the political habits of men. Her request was not a formal constitutional demand, but it was a sharp reminder that revolutionary language had wider implications. If power could be questioned when kings abused it, why should husbands or lawmakers ignore the rights of women? Her words reveal how closely the struggle for independence touched private life. The revolution raised questions about authority in homes as well as governments. Women managed farms, businesses, households, and family survival, while men were away in politics or war. Many contributed to boycotts, fundraising, production, and patriotic networks. Yet they had little direct power in the new political system. Abigail's warning carried both wit and seriousness. She understood that a republic built on liberty could still preserve old forms of domination. Her voice reminds us that women were not absent from the founding. They were watching, thinking, and challenging its limits. The Declaration did not give women legal political equality. The document spoke in sweeping language, but it did not grant women the vote, office holding, or equal legal standing. In most places, married women remained under laws that limited independent property rights and public authority. Political citizenship was largely defined through men. This gap matters because the revolution expanded ideas while institutions changed more slowly. Women were praised as patriotic mothers and moral guardians, but praise was not the same as power. Their influence often had to move through family, education, religion, or informal networks. Over time, the founding language became useful to women's rights advocates. They could point to principles of consent and equality, then ask why those principles stopped at gender. The Declaration therefore had an afterlife its authors did not fully intend. It did not create equality for women, but it helped provide the vocabulary later reformers would use. Sometimes a document becomes more radical in the hands of those it excluded. Native nations faced uncertain futures as the new republic expanded. For indigenous peoples, American independence did not simply mean a new flag. It raised urgent questions about land, diplomacy, and survival. Native nations had their own governments, alliances, rivalries, and strategies. Many tried to protect their homelands by negotiating with whichever power seemed most likely to restrain colonial expansion. British officials had sometimes limited settlement beyond certain boundaries, though often inconsistently and for imperial reasons. A victorious United States brought new pressure from settlers eager for land. The language of liberty did not stop expansion into native territory. In many places, it accelerated it. Indigenous leaders understood that the revolution could redraw power across the continent without their consent. Their future was not a footnote to the founding. It was central to the meaning of independence on the ground. The new republic's growth would repeatedly test whether freedom for one people could coexist with the sovereignty of another. Too often, the answer became conquest. Enslaved people heard freedom language that did not yet include them. The words of independence traveled into a world where many people were legally denied control over their own bodies, labor, families, and movement. For the enslaved, revolutionary language could sound both inspiring and bitter. It announced that liberty was a natural right while leaving them trapped in bondage. Some used the chaos of war to seek freedom by escape, military service, petition, or alliance with whichever side offered a chance. Others listened as white leaders defended resistance to tyranny while maintaining ownership over human beings. That contradiction was impossible to miss. The revolution created openings, but not universal liberation. In some northern states, anti-slavery sentiment grew stronger after independence. In much of the South, slavery remained deeply protected. The freedom language of the era still mattered because enslaved and free black people could claim it as evidence against the nation's hypocrisy. They heard not only what America said about itself, but what America owed. Free black Americans used the Declaration's words to demand justice. In the years after independence, Black petitioners, writers, church leaders, and activists turned founding language into a powerful moral weapon. They did not need to invent a new standard from nothing. They could quote America's own principles back to lawmakers and the public. If liberty was a natural right, then racial exclusion demanded explanation. If government rested on justice, then laws protecting slavery and discrimination stood condemned. Free Black communities organized schools, mutual aid societies, churches, and anti-slavery efforts that connected civic life with moral argument. Their activism showed that the Declaration belonged not only to those who wrote it. It could be claimed by those who saw its promises most clearly because they lived under its failures. This is one of the most remarkable features of the document. Its words escaped the control of the founding generation. People denied equality made those words sharper, broader, and more demanding than many founders intended. Frederick Douglass later challenged America through the meaning of the Fourth. Douglass understood the power of anniversaries. In a famous address, he asked what the nation's celebration meant to people still denied freedom. His question cut through patriotic comfort. He did not reject the founding ideals as meaningless. Instead, he treated them as evidence. America had proclaimed principles that condemned slavery with devastating force. That made celebration without justice morally unbearable. Douglass used the occasion to force listeners to confront the distance between national memory and national conduct. His speech was not a simple attack on the past. It was a demand that the country become worthy of its own declaration. The brilliance of his approach lay in turning the holiday into a mirror. Fireworks and speeches could not hide the contradiction he exposed. Through his voice, the Fourth became more than a birthday. It became a test of conscience. Douglass showed that remembrance can be patriotic precisely because it refuses to flatter. Early celebrations often included speeches about liberty and unfinished promises. Independence Day was never only noise and display. From the early years, communities gathered to hear orations that explained what the revolution meant. Speakers praised sacrifice, defended Republican principles, and warned citizens about the duties of freedom. These addresses could be solemn, fiery, partisan, or reform-minded. They gave the holiday an educational purpose. Many Americans learned national history through public speech before museums, documentaries, or mass schooling became common. The event became a yearly opportunity to define the country aloud. Because liberty was the central theme, speakers could also point to failures. Some called for unity. Others argued over rights, government power, or moral reform. The tradition made the Fourth a living debate rather than a fixed ceremony. A town might gather under summer heat and hear not just celebration, but instruction. The day asked citizens to remember independence, then consider whether they were preserving it properly. That question never disappeared. Public readings helped ordinary people understand the break with Britain. In an age when many people encountered politics through spoken words, reading the Declaration aloud was essential. Not everyone had easy access to printed texts. Not everyone could pause privately over a document. A public reading turned the argument into a shared experience. Listeners heard the structure of the case. First came principles about rights and government. Then came accusations. Finally came the conclusion that separation was justified. This order mattered because it taught people how to understand the break. Independence was not presented as anger alone. It was framed as a reasoned response to repeated violations. The voice of the reader gave rhythm and authority to the text. The crowd's reaction gave the moment social power. People could look around and sense whether neighbors accepted the claim. In that way, reading became political action. The Declaration did not simply inform the public. It helped form a public capable of imagining itself as independent. The first printed declaration was rushed out by John Dunlap. Late in Philadelphia, a printer named John Dunlap received the task of turning Congress's approved text into printed broadsides. The work had to be done quickly because copies were needed for officials, armies, and colonial governments. Imagine the pressure inside the print shop. Metal type had to be set by hand. Ink had to meet paper cleanly. Mistakes had to be avoided in a text meant to announce a new political reality. Dunlap was not creating a treasured museum object. He was producing urgent wartime communication. The printed sheets carried the date, the words, and the authority of Congress into circulation. They were practical tools before they became priceless artifacts. That is part of their magic. A printer, working under deadline, helped launch one of history's most famous messages. The revolution depended not only on generals and statesmen. It also depended on skilled hands in workshops, turning decisions into objects that could travel. Dunlap broadsides spread the news before handwritten copies became famous. The printed sheets were the first version many people encountered. They could be posted, carried, read aloud, and copied into newspapers. Their purpose was speed. The elegant parchment that later became iconic was not the first vehicle of the news. That difference changes how we imagine the Declaration's early life. It began as a printed announcement, moving through a tense wartime landscape. A broadside might arrive folded, stained, or hurriedly handled. It might be nailed to a wall or read before troops. It might pass from one official hand to another. These sheets helped transform congressional approval into public reality. Today, surviving examples are valued because they are close to the original shock of the moment. They represent the Declaration before it became ceremonial. They show the document in motion, doing its first job. The famous handwriting belongs to memory. The broadsides belong to urgency, movement, and the first spread of independence. Only a small number of original Dunlap broadsides survive today. Most were made for use, not preservation. They traveled through a world of rain, fire, war, rough handling, and ordinary neglect. Some were posted in public. Others were folded into records. Many likely disappeared once their immediate purpose had passed. That makes the surviving copies extraordinary. Each one is a rare witness to the earliest public life of independence. Their scarcity reminds us how fragile history can be. The objects that later generations treasure often survive by accident as much as design. A sheet placed in the right archive, tucked into the right collection, or spared from destruction can become priceless centuries later. These broadsides also help historians trace how the news moved. They connect the decision in Congress to the wider world that received it. When we think of founding documents, we imagine permanence. The first printed declaration was anything but permanent. It was paper in motion, and only a few pieces escaped time. The engrossed parchment was prepared after independence had already been declared. The beautiful handwritten copy that people picture today came after the urgent political act. Engrossing meant producing a formal version in careful script, suitable for official signing and preservation. This was a different kind of work from printing broadsides. It gave the Declaration a ceremonial body. The words had already entered public circulation, but the parchment turned them into a lasting record of commitment. Its appearance helped shape later memory because it looked like a founding relic. Large handwriting, ordered lines, and gathered signatures created a powerful visual symbol. Yet the timing matters. The nation's most famous document was not the first expression of the decision. It was the formal embodiment of a step already taken. That fact deepens its meaning. The parchment is not the moment independence began. It is the moment independence was given a durable face. It transformed an act of Congress into an object future generations could stand before in awe. John Hancock's bold signature became a legend of patriotic confidence. Hancock's name is impossible to miss on the parchment. Its size and flourish made it the most famous signature in American history. Over time, stories grew around it, including the idea that he wrote so large, the king could read it without spectacles. Whether that exact tale is true is less important than why people loved it. The signature seemed to capture defiance in visual form. Hancock had been a prominent patriot, a wealthy merchant, and president of Congress. His public role already made him a target in British eyes. The boldness of his name fit the legend Americans wanted to tell about courage. It turned handwriting into personality. A signature normally confirms identity. His became a national emblem. Even today, people use his name as a synonym for signing. That is a remarkable afterlife for a stroke of ink. It shows how symbols can grow from small details into living folklore. Some signers used smaller signatures because the act was still dangerous. The parchment contains a range of handwriting, from large and confident to compact and restrained. It is tempting to read too much into size, but the variety still reminds us that these were individual men in a dangerous situation. Each signer had his own temperament, habits, and sense of risk. A smaller signature did not mean a smaller commitment. It may simply reflect personal style, training, or the practical arrangement of names on the page. Yet the danger surrounding the act was real. By placing their names on a document of separation, the signers connected themselves publicly to rebellion. The page became a record that could identify them. Later, mythology sometimes imagined them all as fearless in the same way. The handwriting suggests something more human. Courage does not always look loud. Sometimes it is quiet, careful, and still decisive. A small signature on that parchment could carry the same weight as the boldest one. The signers risked accusations of treason against the British Crown. Under the law they were rejecting, allegiance to the king was not a symbolic matter. To renounce it and support armed resistance could be treated as treason. That threat gave the act a deadly seriousness. The signers were not simply endorsing an essay. They were attaching their names to a public rupture with the empire. If the rebellion failed, British authorities would have had a clear record of leading offenders. The consequences might have included confiscation, imprisonment, or execution. This risk has sometimes been romanticized, but it should not be softened into legend alone. These men had families, property, ambitions, fears, and reputations. They knew the British military remained formidable. Their decision combined conviction with calculation, bravery with uncertainty. Treason is often defined by the winner. If Britain had crushed the revolution, the signers might have been remembered as rebels who failed. Because independence survived, they became founders. The difference was victory. Not every delegate present on July 4th signed the parchment. The signing story is more complex than the popular image suggests. The final parchment gathered names over time, and not everyone involved in the approval process left a signature on that famous sheet. Some delegates were absent when signing occurred. Some had been replaced. Some supported independence but were not present for the later formal act. This difference between voting, approving, and signing can feel surprising because public memory compresses events into one simple scene. History rarely behaves so neatly. Congress was a working body with changing membership, travel delays, illness, instructions from home, and wartime disruption. The parchment became the symbol, but it does not perfectly capture every person involved in the decision. That makes the story more interesting rather than less. The founding was not a still painting. It was a moving process filled with arrivals, departures, revisions, and responsibilities. The famous names matter, but they are not the whole cast. Some signers joined later after their colonies changed instructions. Delegates did not always have freedom to vote according to personal belief. Many depended on instructions from colonial governments or conventions. As public opinion shifted and local authorities endorsed independence, congressional positions changed as well. This meant some men became signers after the decisive movement had already begun. Their later signatures reflected the changing political landscape back home. The revolution was not only made in Philadelphia, it was also made in county meetings, provincial congresses, militia gatherings, newspapers, and private conversations. Local decisions gave delegates permission to act. This connection between home and Congress mattered because independence needed legitimacy beyond a small group of leaders. A signature added after instructions changed was not an afterthought. It was evidence that the cause had widened. The parchment therefore records not just individual courage, but the movement of entire communities towards separation. Each name stood behind a larger process of persuasion that had unfolded across the colonies. The Declaration traveled during the war to keep it safe. The famous parchment did not simply remain in one peaceful room. As war threatened Philadelphia and other locations, important government papers had to be protected. The document moved with Congress and its records as leaders tried to keep the revolutionary government functioning. This physical journey is easy to forget because we now see the Declaration as fixed behind glass. During the war, it was vulnerable. It could have been captured, damaged, lost, or destroyed. Its survival depended on clerks, wagons, guards, and hurried decisions made under pressure. The object we now treat as almost sacred once belonged to a government on the run. That gives it a different kind of drama. It was not only a text about independence. It was a piece of independence that had to be carried through danger. Every mile it traveled reflected the uncertainty of the cause. The parchment endured because the revolution endured, and because people took care to save it. Philadelphia was the birthplace of the 4th of July tradition. The city was the political center where Congress met, but it also became an early stage for public commemoration. Its streets, taverns, print shops, and public buildings helped turn independence from a decision into a civic ritual. Philadelphia had the population, newspapers, and political importance to make its celebrations visible. When the anniversary was marked there, reports could spread to other places and offer a model for how the day might be observed. The city's role was not accidental. It had hosted debates, welcomed delegates, and watched the crisis unfold at close range. Residents lived near the rooms where decisions were made. That closeness gave the anniversary special force. The tradition did not appear fully formed across the entire country. It developed in particular communities before becoming national. Philadelphia's early celebrations helped teach Americans what the 4th could look like. A local memory became a shared pattern, and the city became part of the holiday's identity. The Liberty Bell was not rung for independence in the famous way. The popular image is powerful. A bell rings out at the exact birth of independence, filling Philadelphia with the sound of freedom. The problem is that the story is more legend than solid fact. Bells did ring in public life, and they were used to gather people or mark civic events. Yet the specific tale of the Liberty Bell announcing independence at the decisive moment grew later. The bell itself was originally a state house bell with a biblical inscription about liberty. It gained its most famous meaning over time, especially as later generations searched for symbols that could embody the founding. This does not make the bell unimportant. It makes it fascinating. Its power comes partly from how Americans turned an old civic object into a national icon. History often works this way. An artifact survives, a story gathers around it, and the symbol becomes larger than the evidence that first attached to it. The bell's patriotic legend grew stronger long after the Revolution. The object, now known around the world, did not become instantly famous in 1776. Its meaning deepened across later decades as Americans reimagined the Revolution and searched for tangible links to the founding. Anti-slavery activists helped elevate the bell's significance because its inscription proclaimed liberty throughout the land. That phrase gave reformers a powerful symbol for a nation still struggling with bondage. The crack in the bell also made it visually unforgettable. A damaged bell speaking of liberty became almost too meaningful to ignore. It could suggest endurance, imperfection, and an unfinished promise. Tourists, writers, and public ceremonies then added more layers to its reputation. By the time it became a national treasure, the bell carried far more than its original civic purpose. It had become a vessel for memory. Its legend shows how symbols are not born all at once. They gather meaning as later generations pour their hopes and arguments into them. Early Americans celebrated with bonfires, bells, parades, and cannon fire. The earliest Independence Day gatherings were noisy, physical, and impossible to ignore. Celebration was not something people watched from a distance. It filled the streets and demanded attention. Bonfires turned night into public theater. Bells called communities together with a sound already associated with warning, worship, and civic life. Parades gave people a way to see the new political order moving before them. Cannon fire added the thunder of military defiance. These customs came from older traditions of marking royal birthdays and public victories, but Americans redirected them toward a republic. That change mattered. The people were no longer honoring a monarch above them. They were celebrating a political identity they claimed to share. The holiday became a performance of belonging. Sound, light, and motion helped make independence feel real in places far from Congress. In an age before microphones or screens, celebration had to be felt in the chest, heard across town, and remembered by the body. Fireworks arrived from older European traditions of royal celebration. Long before they became linked with American independence, fireworks dazzled courts and cities across Europe. They were expensive, carefully planned, and often used to honor kings, military victories, weddings, and treaties. Their beauty came with a message. A ruler who could command light, noise, and spectacle seemed powerful enough to command loyalty. Fireworks were part entertainment and part political display. They turned the night sky into a stage for authority. When Americans adopted them, they were borrowing a language audiences already understood. A burst of colored fire meant importance. A public show meant shared emotion. The difference was the subject being honored. Instead of celebrating hereditary power, Americans used the same spectacle to mark a break from it. That irony gives the tradition its hidden drama. A display once associated with monarchy became attached to a nation that had rejected monarchy. The sky did not change, but the meaning of the light did. Americans transformed fireworks from royal spectacle into Republican symbolism. The magic of the early Fourth was not simply that people used fireworks. It was that they gave fireworks a new political soul. In a monarchy, spectacle often flowed downward from ruler to subjects. In the new republic, public display was meant to belong to the citizens themselves. Fireworks became a shared ritual rather than a tribute to one person. The crowd mattered. The watching community became part of the meaning. A brilliant explosion overhead could suggest victory, but it could also suggest participation. Everyone saw the same light. Everyone heard the same crack and echo. For a young country still uncertain about its future, That shared experience helped build emotional unity. The display made independence visible in a way speeches alone could not. It also translated political theory into celebration. Consent, liberty, and self-government are difficult ideas to picture. Fireworks gave them a sensory form. For a moment, the Republic seemed to bloom above the rooftops. The first anniversary celebration happened while the war still raged. The earliest July anniversary did not take place after victory was secure. It happened during danger. British forces still held ground. The outcome of the revolution was uncertain. Families were divided by loyalty, and military news could bring dread as easily as hope. That makes the celebration astonishing. People were not looking back from safety. They were marking a cause still being tested. The anniversary became an act of confidence before the world had confirmed that confidence was justified. To celebrate under those conditions was to say that independence already had meaning, even if its survival remained uncertain. The day helped people imagine endurance. It gave the revolution a rhythm and a memory before the war was over. Anniversaries usually commemorate completed events. This one began while the story was still open. Each cheer carried a question inside it. Would the promise survive another year? Would the new states hold together? No one knew. Philadelphia marked the first anniversary with ships, bells, and fireworks. In 1777, the city gave the young holiday one of its earliest public forms. The celebration included official ceremony and popular excitement. Ships were dressed for the occasion, giving the waterfront a festive appearance. Bells rang through the city, linking the event to familiar sounds of civic notice. Fireworks closed the evening with spectacle. What makes this moment so fascinating is that it provided a template while the revolution remained unstable. Philadelphia was not merely throwing a party. It was demonstrating how a people might honor independence as a public ritual. The city's example traveled through newspapers and memory. Other communities could imitate, adapt, and localize the pattern. The anniversary began to acquire habits. It needed public sound. It needed visible display. It needed a sense that ordinary life had paused for something larger. A tradition was being invented in real time. The people celebrating that day were not preserving custom. They were creating it. George Washington gave troops extra rum on an early 4th. For soldiers in the Continental Army, independence was not an abstract holiday. It was the cause tied to hunger, marching, fear, and long separation from home. An extra ration of rum on the anniversary offered more than brief comfort. It acknowledged sacrifice. Military life was harsh, and morale mattered deeply. A small allowance could lift spirits, mark the day as special, and remind soldiers that they were part of something larger than camp routine. Washington understood symbols, but he also understood human endurance. Men who faced disease, poor supplies, and uncertain pay needed moments that connected hardship to purpose. The gesture turned the anniversary into a soldier's experience. It brought the meaning of independence into the Army's daily world. The celebration did not require grand architecture or elegant speeches. It could happen around a camp, with tired men raising a drink to the cause they were asked to defend. Even small rituals can carry history. Soldiers celebrated independence while fighting for its survival. The men who served in the Revolutionary War marked the anniversary from within the struggle itself. Their celebrations were shaped by circumstance. Some heard speeches from officers. Some joined toasts in camp. Some listened to music or watched limited displays if supplies allowed. Others may have passed the day with little more than memory and hope. What mattered was the contrast. The ideals of independence were being honored by people whose bodies bore the cost of defending them. A soldier could celebrate liberty while sleeping on hard ground, wearing worn clothing, or waiting for orders that might lead into battle. That tension gives the early holiday a deeper force. It was not simply a civic observance. It was a reminder of why the army existed. The anniversary helped transform military suffering into national service. Each year the war continued. The day asked the same question in a new setting. Could the promise survive the next campaign? The 4th helped unite people across distant states and towns. The early United States was spread across long distances, rough roads, and strong local identities. Many people had never traveled far beyond their region. The anniversary gave separated communities a shared calendar. A farmer in one state, a merchant in another, and a village crowd hundreds of miles away could all pause for the same reason. That kind of shared timing mattered. It helped people imagine themselves as part of the larger public, even when they would never meet. The holiday gave the new union a yearly heartbeat. Local celebrations looked different, but their common purpose linked them. A town could hear its own orator, organize its own procession, and prepare its own meal while still taking part in a national ritual. The 4th taught Americans how to feel connected without being physically together. Before railroads and instant communication, this was powerful. The same anniversary could make a scattered people feel like one political community. Newspapers spread patriotic poems, toasts, and reports of celebrations. Print helped the 4th travel beyond the places where it was celebrated. Newspapers reported who spoke, what was said, how crowds gathered, and which sentiments were toasted. They printed poems that turned independence into verse and gave readers words to carry into their own communities. These reports did more than preserve events. They created models. A town could read about another town's celebration and borrow its style. Editors also used the holiday to shape public feeling. They selected language that praised virtue, sacrifice, unity, or party loyalty. In this way, newspapers became architects of memory. They linked local observances into a national conversation. Readers could picture celebrations happening far away and feel that they belonged to the same story. The press turned scattered rituals into shared culture. It also made the holiday competitive. Communities wanted their patriotism noticed. A printed account could make a local gathering feel important enough to enter the record of the Republic. Public toasts became an early 4th of July tradition. A toast was more than a raised glass. It was a spoken statement of loyalty, belief, and political identity. At early anniversary dinners, participants offered formal lines honoring independence, leaders, military victories, principles, and hopes for the future. These words were often printed afterward, which gave them a life beyond the table. Toasting allowed ordinary people to take part in public language. A person did not need to write a full speech to join the ritual. A carefully phrased sentence could carry meaning, humor, defiance, or warning. The sequence of toasts also revealed what a community valued. Some emphasized unity. Others revealed political division. The custom blended sociability with citizenship. Eating and drinking became connected to national memory. The ritual could feel festive, but it was not empty. Each toast asked listeners to agree, applaud, and remember. In a young republic, spoken approval mattered. The glass became a small instrument of politics. Toasts often praised liberty, Washington, Congress, and fallen patriots. The subjects chosen for early holiday toasts tell us what Americans wanted to honor. Liberty stood at the center because it gave the revolution its moral language. Washington became a symbol of military endurance and public virtue. Congress represented collective political authority, even when citizens disagreed with its decisions. Fallen patriots gave the celebration a solemn depth. Their memory reminded participants that independence had been purchased through suffering. A toast could move from pride to mourning in a single sentence. This blend made the holiday emotionally complex from the beginning. It was not only triumph, it was gratitude, grief, and duty. By naming heroes and ideals aloud, communities rehearsed the story they wanted to pass on. These spoken tributes also helped create a national cast of characters. People learned whom to admire and why. The ritual showed that memory was being organized in real time. The revolution was becoming history, while its wounds were still fresh. Political parties later used the 4th to argue about America. As organized political conflict grew, the holiday became a battlefield of interpretation. Different groups claimed the founding for their own vision of the country. A celebration could praise national power, defend local rights, support a president, or condemn one. The same anniversary could host rival meanings only streets apart. This was not a failure of the holiday. It showed how central the 4th had become. People argued through it because it mattered. Whoever could define the meaning of independence gained moral authority. Party newspapers amplified these arguments by printing speeches and toasts that praised friends and mocked opponents. The holiday became a yearly test of political language. Citizens gathered not only to remember the past, but to fight over the present. This tradition still feels familiar. Americans have rarely agreed completely about what liberty requires. The 4th gave them a dramatic stage on which to make their case beneath the banner of the founding. Federalists and Republicans held rival 4th of July celebrations. In the early Republic, political division could shape even the anniversary of independence. Federalists and Democratic Republicans often organized separate gatherings. Each side saw itself as the true guardian of the revolution. Federalists tended to stress order, national authority, and stability. Republicans often emphasized vigilance against concentrated power and sympathy for broader popular participation. Their celebrations might include different speakers, different newspapers, different songs, and sharply different toasts. To modern ears, it may sound strange that a unifying holiday produced divided events. Yet the split reveals a deeper truth. The revolution had not settled every question. It had opened a contest over what Republican government should become. Rival celebrations allowed each side to claim patriotic legitimacy. People were not merely choosing a party. They were choosing a story about America's meaning. The 4th became a mirror of the young nation's anxieties. Even in celebration, the Republic was learning how to disagree with itself. The holiday became a stage for competing visions of freedom. Freedom sounds simple until people begin to define it. For some Americans, it meant protection from distant power. For others, it meant strong institutions that could preserve order. For reformers, it meant expanding rights to those left outside the founding promise. For enslavers, it was often claimed in ways that defended their own authority while denying freedom to others. The 4th made these conflicts visible because the language of the day was so powerful. A speaker could not discuss independence without touching the meaning of liberty. That made the holiday useful to nearly every movement that wanted moral force. Abolitionists, labor advocates, women's rights supporters, immigrants, veterans, and party leaders all found ways to speak through it. The anniversary became less like a closed museum and more like an open courtroom. Americans returned each year to present new arguments before the same founding words. The day endured because it could be celebrated and challenged at once. Early parades featured militias, tradesmen, children, and civic leaders. Processions gave the holiday a visible order. People did not simply gather. They arranged themselves into a moving picture of the community. Militia units brought discipline and martial memory. Tradesmen displayed the dignity of work, and the importance of local production. Children represented the future that independence was supposed to protect. Civic leaders gave official weight to the event. A parade could show who held status, who belonged, and what the town wanted to celebrate about itself. These processions were carefully observed. Where groups stood in the line could matter. Banners, uniforms, tools, and music all carried meaning. For spectators, the community seemed to pass by in symbolic form. The Republic became something you could watch, step by step. Parades also allowed people who might never speak from a platform to appear in the public ritual. The moving crowd turned citizenship into a shared display. It made the holiday both theatrical and deeply local. Independence Day speeches helped define what citizenship meant. The annual oration became one of the holiday's most important traditions. A speaker stood before the community and explained the duties attached to freedom. These addresses often praised the revolution, but they also looked forward. Citizens were told to preserve virtue, defend institutions, educate children, resist corruption, or remain worthy of the founders. The speeches mattered because citizenship in a republic required more than obedience. People were expected to participate in public life and judge political conduct. The 4th gave speakers a dramatic setting for that lesson. The anniversary made abstract responsibilities feel personal. A listener could hear that independence had been won by sacrifice and then be asked what he or she owed in return. Over time, these speeches became records of changing national concerns. Each generation used the same day to discuss its own fears. The form stayed familiar, but the meaning evolved. Citizenship was explained again and again beneath the shadow of the founding. Orators used the holiday to teach history to new generations. Before history was widely taught through textbooks and public museums, anniversary speeches helped pass the revolution from memory into instruction. Older citizens could remember parts of the struggle directly. Younger listeners knew it through stories. The 4th became a bridge between them. Orators retold the causes, dangers, sacrifices, and principles of independence in language designed to move a crowd. They simplified some events and emphasized others, which helped shape national memory. The goal was not neutral scholarship. It was moral education. Speakers wanted children and young adults to feel gratitude and responsibility. They often described the founding generation as an example to imitate. This teaching role gave the holiday a classroom quality, even when it unfolded outdoors or at a public dinner. The past was not presented as distant. It was treated as an inheritance. Each year, the story was handed down again, polished by repetition, and adjusted to meet the needs of the moment. Small towns made the 4th feel local as well as national. The holiday did not belong only to capitals and large cities. Villages and rural communities gave it their own character. A small town might mark the day with a church bell, a schoolhouse gathering, a local speaker, a shared meal, or a modest procession. These events tied national independence to familiar faces and places. That connection was important because patriotism can feel abstract when it is only attached to distant leaders. In small communities, the anniversary became personal. The person reading the declaration might be a neighbor. The musicians might be local children. The veterans being honored might sit in the front row. The celebration turned the nation into something close enough to touch. It also allowed different regions to shape the holiday around their own customs. The 4th became a national event because thousands of local communities made it their own. The Republic lived not only in documents, but in town greens and meeting halls. Churches sometimes marked independence with sermons about providence and liberty. For many early Americans, politics and religion were not sealed apart in daily thought. Clergy often used the anniversary to interpret the revolution within a moral framework. Sermons could present independence as evidence of divine favor, but they could also warn that liberty required virtue. This made the holiday spiritually serious for many listeners. Freedom was not described as permission to do anything. It was treated as a responsibility that could be lost through corruption, selfishness, or injustice. Ministers drew on scripture, history, and recent memory to explain the meaning of national survival. Their messages helped connect public life with conscience. A congregation might leave the service feeling that the Republic depended on moral conduct as much as military victory or legal design. These sermons also gave the holiday a quieter counterpoint to its louder customs. Before or after the noise of celebration, people could hear independence framed as a trust that demanded humility and care. The 4th became a civic ritual before it became a federal holiday. Long before the government formally recognized the date for federal workers, communities were already treating it as special. That order matters. The holiday grew from public practice upward rather than simply being imposed by law. People gathered because they wanted to mark the anniversary. Towns developed customs. Newspapers reported events. Speakers prepared addresses. Families and neighbors came to expect the day as part of the year's rhythm. By the time official recognition arrived, the tradition already had deep roots. This shows how national culture is often built. Law can confirm a holiday, but repeated public action gives it life. The 4th became powerful because people kept returning to it. Each celebration added another layer of expectation and memory. The day entered the calendar through habit, emotion, and civic repetition. Official status came later. In a sense, Americans made Independence Day before the federal government fully named it as one. Congress made Independence Day an unpaid federal holiday. When the date first gained federal holiday status, it did not immediately mean paid time off. That difference reveals how holidays changed over time. Early recognition marked importance, but it did not yet create the modern expectation of a paid day away from work. The federal government was smaller, and labor customs were different. For many people, especially workers outside government, observance still depended on employers, local practice, and economic necessity. The unpaid status reminds us that the holiday's meaning and its practical experience were not identical. A day could be honored nationally while still being a workday for many. Over time, Americans came to expect holidays to include rest, leisure, and family gathering. That development reflected broader changes in labor, government, and public life. The first legal recognition was therefore a milestone, but not the final form of the holiday. It marked a step from custom toward institution, with the modern celebration still taking shape. Federal workers later received paid leave for the 4th. The move to paid leave gave the holiday a new practical meaning. It turned official recognition into time. For federal employees, the anniversary became not only something to honor, but a day set apart from ordinary labor. That change reflected a growing belief that national commemoration deserved public space in daily life. Paid holidays also reveal the expanding relationship between government and workers. As the federal workplace became more organized, the calendar became part of employment. A paid 4th allowed more people to attend ceremonies, visit family, travel, or rest. It helped align civic memory with personal experience. The holiday could now shape the rhythm of work itself. This may sound ordinary today, but it represented an important shift. The state was not merely naming patriotic dates. It was building them into the lives of its employees. The anniversary gained weight through law, habit, and the simple fact that people were given time to observe it. The holiday grew as the United States expanded westward. As the country moved across the continent, the 4th moved with it. Settlers, soldiers, officials, merchants, and families carried the anniversary into new communities. In frontier towns, marking Independence Day could be a way to claim connection to the Republic. A celebration might take place in a rough settlement far from the Atlantic cities where the revolution began. That distance made the ritual even more important. It told participants that they belonged to the same national story. Yet westward expansion also carried conflict. Celebrations of liberty often unfolded on land tied to native nations whose own sovereignty was under pressure. The holiday therefore traveled with both aspiration and violence. It helped stitch distant settlements into American identity, but it also accompanied the country's most troubling growth. This dual meaning makes the westward 4th especially revealing. The anniversary could make newcomers feel rooted, while also marking the spread of a republic that did not expand harmlessly. New territories used the 4th to claim belonging in the republic. In places not yet admitted as states, Independence Day carried special significance. Territorial communities often used the holiday to show that they were ready for full membership in the national project. Their celebrations could include speeches about loyalty, local progress, and hopes for statehood. The anniversary became a public application for belonging. A town could decorate, gather, parade, and declare through ritual that it shared the values of the older states. This mattered because status in the Union was not only legal, it was emotional and symbolic. People wanted to be seen as true Americans, not distant outsiders. The 4th offered a ready-made language for that claim. By honoring the founding, territories connected their future to the nation's origin. The celebration also allowed local leaders to present their community as orderly, patriotic, and deserving of recognition. In this way, the holiday helped turn geography into identity. It made distant places feel closer to the center. Immigrants often joined 4th celebrations to express new American identity. For newcomers, the holiday could be both welcoming and complicated. Participation offered a visible way to enter the public life of their adopted country. Marching in a parade, attending a ceremony, or listening to a speech allowed immigrants to show attachment to American ideals. The 4th could help translate belonging into action. It was a day when civic identity was performed openly, which made it useful for people building a new life. At the same time, acceptance was not always easy. Different immigrant groups faced suspicion, prejudice, and pressure to prove loyalty. The holiday could therefore become a test as well as an invitation. By joining the celebration, immigrants claimed a place in the national story. They also changed the holiday by bringing new languages, customs, foods, and community organizations into the observance. The anniversary helped American identity expand, even when the country struggled to welcome the people who were helping to reshape it. Naturalization ceremonies became a meaningful part of Independence Day. Few settings make the transition to citizenship feel more dramatic than the anniversary of independence. On this day, new citizens take an oath that connects personal choice to national history. The ceremony turns the 4th from memory into living commitment. People from many backgrounds stand together and formally enter the political community. The meaning is powerful because the holiday already asks what freedom and belonging require. Naturalization gives that question a human face. For participants, the day can mark the end of a long process involving paperwork, study, waiting, and hope. For observers, it shows that the American story did not close with the founding generation. It continues whenever someone chooses citizenship and accepts its responsibilities. These ceremonies also complicate simple ideas of national identity. They show that America is not only inherited, it is joined. The 4th becomes more than a look backward. It becomes a doorway through which new Americans step into the Republic. The 4th became linked with citizenship long after the Revolution. At first, the anniversary focused on independence from Britain and survival as a new political community. Over time, its meaning widened. It became a day for asking who belongs, what rights citizens possess, and what responsibilities come with freedom. This shift happened as the country changed. Expanding suffrage, immigration, civil rights struggles, wars, and reform movements all pressed new questions onto the holiday. Citizenship was no longer only about rejecting monarchy. It became about participation in a republic that was still defining itself. The 4th offered a familiar stage for these debates because its founding language carried moral authority. Speakers could use the day to welcome new citizens, challenge exclusion, or call people back to public duty. The holiday's link with citizenship grew because Americans kept using it to explain membership. It became a yearly reminder that independence created a political community, but citizenship determines how that community has lived. Picnics and public meals grew from older communal celebration traditions. Eating together has always been one of the simplest ways to turn a date into a shared experience. Early Independence Day meals drew from older customs of public dinners, harvest gatherings, militia musters, church events, and civic feasts. Food made the holiday social. People who might not deliver speeches or march in processions could still participate at the table. A public meal also softened political ceremony into human connection. Neighbors talked, families gathered, and children learned that the anniversary belonged to ordinary life as well as official ritual. Over time, outdoor eating became especially tied to the summer character of the day. Fields, town greens, yards, and parks became places where national memory could be relaxed without losing meaning. The picnic made independence feel domestic and local. It brought the grand language of founding documents down to plates, baskets, blankets, and conversation. In that transformation, the holiday became easier to repeat across generations. Barbecues connected the holiday to gathering, politics, and local pride. The barbecue has deep roots in American public life. Long before backyard grills became the familiar image, large outdoor cookouts could draw crowds for speeches, campaigns, and community events. They combined food with persuasion. A political gathering with barbecue could attract people who might not attend a formal meeting. On the 4th, this tradition fit naturally with the summer season and the public nature of the day. Cooking outdoors created a sense of abundance and welcome. It also allowed regions to express themselves through local styles, ingredients, and techniques. The food became part of the identity of the celebration. Barbecue could feed a neighborhood, support a campaign, honor veterans, or raise funds for a civic cause. It turned politics into something people could taste and smell. That is why the tradition has such staying power. It connects national memory to local pride in a way that feels direct, social, and deeply human. American flags became more common at celebrations during later centuries. The flag feels inseparable from the 4th today, but its widespread presence developed over time. In the early republic, flags existed, but they were not yet displayed in the same constant way modern Americans recognize. As national institutions grew, wars shaped public identity, and mass production made flags easier to obtain, the banner became a more familiar part of everyday patriotism. The holiday gave it a perfect setting. A flag could decorate a building, lead a parade, mark a speaker's platform, or hang from a home. It condensed the nation into color and pattern. As the country expanded, new stars also gave the flag a visible connection to growth. Displaying it on the 4th allowed people to connect their local celebration to the larger union. The rise of flag culture changed the look of the holiday. Independence became not only something heard in speeches or seen in fireworks. It became something draped across the public landscape. The Star-Spangled Banner was not America's anthem during the Revolution. During the fight for independence, the song most Americans now associate with national ceremony did not yet exist. Its words were written during the War of 1812 after a later conflict with Britain. That gap matters because it reminds us that national symbols arrived in layers. The Revolution had its own sounds, its own tunes, and its own emotional language. Early Americans sang songs that mocked enemies, praised leaders, or stirred courage in taverns and camps. A national anthem in the modern sense was not yet settled. The United States had to grow into many of the symbols people now assume were present from the start. The later anthem looked back to a different wartime moment, when the Republic had already survived its birth and was fighting to prove its endurance. Its place in Fourth celebrations shows how American memory blends eras together. A holiday born in the Revolution eventually gathered music from a later generation. Patriotic songs changed as the nation's memory of independence changed. Music gave Americans a way to feel history before they understood every detail of it. Early songs could be rough, funny, defiant, or sentimental. Some were borrowed from older tunes and given new words. Others rose from military life, public dinners, or political campaigns. As the country changed, the soundtrack of patriotism changed with it. A young republic needed songs of survival and unity. A growing nation wanted songs that praised its promise. During moments of crisis, music could become more serious, more mournful, or more determined. The Fourth absorbed these changes easily because song fit the holiday's public nature. Crowds could sing together even when they disagreed about politics. Children could learn national feeling through melody. Veterans could hear memory carried by voices around them. No single song ever contained the whole meaning of independence. Instead, the holiday became a vessel for changing music, and music helped each generation hear the founding in its own way. Yankee Doodle began as an insult before Americans embraced it. The tune's history is a perfect example of ridicule turned into pride. British soldiers used it to mock colonial fighters as awkward, rustic, and unsophisticated. The word Yankee itself could carry a sneer, and the song made fun of Americans as provincial amateurs. Yet colonists gradually seized the insult and made it their own. That reversal was psychologically powerful. To sing the song proudly was to say that British contempt no longer had control. What began as mockery became a badge of defiance. During the Revolutionary era, the tune traveled through camps and public gatherings. Its simple rhythm made it easy to remember and repeat. The transformation also suited the character of the rebellion. Americans were often underestimated by professional imperial power. By embracing the taunt, they turned weakness into identity. The song's survival reveals something wonderfully stubborn about patriotism. Sometimes a people does not defeat an insult by denying it. They defeat it by singing it louder. Hail Columbia once rivaled later songs in patriotic importance. For much of the early Republic, this song held a place of deep national affection. It was written in the late 18th century and soon became associated with American unity and civic pride. Before the country had an official anthem, it helped fill a ceremonial role. People heard it at public events, political gatherings, and patriotic occasions. Its title invoked Columbia, a poetic female symbol for the United States that was widely recognized at the time. The song's popularity shows how early Americans were still building a national vocabulary. They needed music that could honor the Republic without leaning on monarchy, dynastic glory, or ancient tradition. Hail Columbia offered confidence during a period when the nation still felt young and fragile. Later songs would eclipse it, but its importance did not vanish from history. It reminds us that patriotism once sounded different. The emotional soundtrack of the United States was not fixed. It was being composed as the country learned who it was. The 4th grew louder as cities gained bigger public celebrations. Urban growth changed the sound and scale of Independence Day. In smaller communities, the anniversary might revolve around a speech, a meal, or a modest procession. In larger cities, crowds could become immense. Streets filled with music, vendors, banners, speeches, engines, whistles, and explosions. Industrial life added new noises to the holiday. Factories, ships, railroads, and fire companies all helped create a louder civic atmosphere. The 4th became a day when the city seemed to announce itself as part of the nation. This could feel thrilling, but also overwhelming. The holiday's noise was a sign of energy, population, and public confidence. It revealed how independence had moved from revolutionary memory into mass urban culture. A city could stage patriotism on a scale earlier generations could hardly imagine. The growing volume also raised questions about safety and public order. Celebration became more spectacular, but spectacle brought risks. The holiday was becoming both bigger and harder to control. Some early fireworks were dangerous enough to spark safety campaigns. The beauty of pyrotechnics has always carried danger close behind it. Early fireworks were less regulated than modern displays, and many people handled explosive materials with limited training. Children could buy small devices. Adults could set off powerful ones in crowded streets. Burns, fires, eye injuries, and accidental explosions became part of the holiday's darker side. Newspapers reported injuries in painful detail, and reformers began to argue that patriotism should not require so much harm. The danger was not limited to fireworks alone. Firecrackers, pistols, cannon blasts, and homemade noise devices all added risk. Safety campaigns grew from the realization that a day meant to honor national life was costing lives and limbs. This tension shaped the modern holiday. Americans wanted excitement, but communities slowly learned that celebration needed boundaries. The push for safer observance shows how traditions are not static. They are revised when their costs become impossible to ignore. Firecracker bans appeared when holiday injuries became too common. As Independence Day celebrations became more explosive, some cities responded with restrictions. Firecrackers were especially controversial because they were cheap, common, and often used recklessly. They could be tossed near crowds, set off in strings, or handled by children too young to understand the danger. Injuries piled up year after year. The problem became so predictable that newspapers sometimes treated the holiday's casualties almost like an annual report. Reformers, doctors, parents, and civic leaders pushed for bans or limits. Their argument was simple and powerful. A patriotic celebration should not leave streets filled with burns, fires, and preventable suffering. These restrictions were not always popular. Many people saw noise as part of the day's identity. Yet the bans marked a turning point in how communities understood public responsibility. The 4th was no longer only about personal expression. It also became a question of shared safety. Freedom in public space had to live beside care for others. The phrase, "safe and sane fireworks," came from reform movements. The expression captured a new idea about celebration. People did not necessarily want to erase fireworks from the 4th. They wanted to separate controlled public displays from reckless private danger. Reformers promoted organized events, safer materials, and stricter rules. The phrase sounded practical because it did not attack patriotism. It promised a better version of it. A community could still enjoy color and excitement without turning the holiday into a scene of injury. The campaign reflected broader progressive-era concerns about public health, child welfare, urban safety, and civic order. It also changed expectations. Instead of every person creating noise wherever they wished, more towns encouraged central displays watched by crowds from a safer distance. The language of safe and sane celebration helped reshape the holiday's atmosphere. It suggested that self-government included self-restraint. In a way, the slogan carried a quiet civic lesson. A free people could choose rules that protected the joy they shared. The 4th inspired both celebration and concern about public disorder. From its early years, Independence Day had two faces. It could inspire pride, gratitude, and community feeling. It could also bring drunkenness, fights, fires, injuries, and unruly crowds. Public officials often had to balance enthusiasm with control. Too much restriction could seem unpatriotic. Too little could leave streets chaotic. This tension reveals something important about civic holidays. They release emotion into public space. People step outside ordinary routines and act with unusual intensity. The 4th invited citizens to celebrate liberty, but liberty itself was a contested idea. Did it mean loud personal expression or orderly public responsibility? Different communities answered differently. Police, reformers, parents, veterans, ministers, and politicians all weighed in at various times. Their concerns did not destroy the holiday. They shaped its evolution. The modern celebration, with permits, organized displays, and official events, grew partly from efforts to keep joy from becoming danger. Patriotism had to learn how to manage its own energy. Temperance advocates once used the holiday to warn against drunkenness. For reformers concerned about alcohol, the 4th offered both a problem and an opportunity. Public drinking had long been part of many celebrations, including dinners, militia gatherings, and political events. But intoxication could turn patriotic joy into disorder. Temperance advocates argued that a day devoted to liberty should not be ruled by appetite. They framed self-control as a civic virtue. In speeches, pamphlets, and alternative events, they urged Americans to celebrate independence without losing command of themselves. This argument fit a broader movement that linked personal habits with the health of the Republic. To them, a free nation required disciplined citizens. The holiday's emotional power made it a useful platform. A reform message delivered on the 4th could borrow the moral authority of the founding. Whether listeners agreed or not, the campaign shows how many causes tried to speak through Independence Day. Even the way people drank, or refused to drink, became part of the national conversation. Some reformers promoted quieter celebrations focused on speeches and schools. The campaign for a calmer 4th was partly a response to injury and disorder, but it was also a vision of citizenship. Reformers wanted the anniversary to teach rather than merely excite. They encouraged school programs, historical readings, patriotic lessons, and ceremonies that children could safely attend. This approach treated the holiday as a manual classroom for the Republic. The goal was not to drain it of feeling. It was to guide feeling toward memory, responsibility, and public virtue. Schools were especially important because they could reach the next generation. A child who learned the meaning of independence through songs, readings, and carefully planned exercises might grow into a more informed citizen. The quieter model never fully replaced loud celebration, and perhaps it never could. But it left a lasting mark. Many modern observances still mix education with festivity. The effort reminds us that Americans have long argued not only about what to celebrate, but how celebration should shape character. The holiday's soundscape changed with cannons, bells, music, and fireworks. Every era of Independence Day has had its own sound. In the early Republic, bells and artillery gave the day a ceremonial and military voice. Parades added drums, fifes, brass bands, and marching feet. Public dinners brought songs and toasts. Later, urban celebrations added the sharper crack of firecrackers and the roar of larger crowds. Organized fireworks created timed bursts that replaced some of the uncontrolled noise of earlier street revelry. The changing soundscape tells a hidden history of technology, public taste, safety, and civic identity. Sound is powerful because it reaches people who may not be watching. A bell can announce belonging across a town. A cannon can make political memory feel physical. Music can invite participation. Fireworks can end a day with shared awe. The 4th has never been silent because independence itself was meant to be proclaimed. The sounds changed, but the impulse remained the same. The nation wanted its anniversary to be heard. Independence Day became a favorite setting for political campaigning. Politicians quickly recognized the holiday's usefulness. A crowd already gathered for patriotic reasons could become an audience for current arguments. A candidate could praise the founders, connect their ideals to present issues, and present himself as the true defender of the Republic. The setting gave political speech a halo of historical meaning. Campaigning on the 4th could feel less like ordinary persuasion and more like a claim to national inheritance. This practice also reveals how civic memory and political ambition often overlap. Leaders did not simply honor the past, they used it. Voters expected public figures to explain how their policies fit the meaning of independence. That made the anniversary a stage for persuasion, rivalry, and self-presentation. The tradition could elevate debate when speakers rose to the occasion. It could also turn the holiday into partisan theater. Either way, the 4th offered something no ordinary campaign stop could provide. It gave politics a founding backdrop. Presidents used 4th speeches to link themselves with founding ideals. For presidents, the anniversary offered a powerful opportunity to speak in the language of national purpose. A 4th of July address could connect an administration to liberty, sacrifice, unity, and constitutional government. The setting mattered because the office itself was part of the republic created after independence. Presidents could use the day to reassure citizens during crisis, defend policy, or call for renewal. They often tried to place current struggles within the long story of the nation. This could be sincere, strategic, or both. The founding ideals provided a moral vocabulary that few Americans could ignore. When a president spoke on the 4th, he was not only addressing a crowd, he was stepping into a conversation with the past. The danger was obvious. If the words sounded hollow, the contrast with the declaration's promise became sharper. The holiday magnified presidential language. It made leadership feel historical, even when the problems were immediate. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died on the same 4th. The coincidence stunned the young nation. Two central figures of independence, once allies, then rivals, then reconciled correspondents, died on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration's adoption. The date seemed almost too symbolic to be real. Jefferson had drafted the famous text. Adams had fought fiercely for the cause in Congress. Their lives had traced the revolution from argument to government to memory. By the time they died, the founding generation was passing into legend. News of their deaths gave the anniversary a new layer of meaning. It felt as though history had arranged a final ceremony. Americans were deeply moved because the timing connected human mortality with national endurance. The men who helped announce independence were gone, but the Republic remained. The coincidence also softened memories of their political bitterness. In death, they became paired symbols of the founding. The 4th was no longer only the date of a document. It became the date of their farewell. Their deaths on the 50th anniversary seemed astonishing to Americans. In 1826, many citizens believed they were witnessing providence, destiny, or a sign from history itself. The country was marking half a century since independence had been declared. Then came the news that two of its most famous founders had died on the same day. People did not treat this as ordinary coincidence. Newspapers, ministers, and orators gave the event enormous meaning. It seemed to confirm that the founding generation had been specially tied to the nation's purpose. The timing helped transform Jefferson and Adams from political figures into almost mythic characters. Their long friendship, bitter divide, and late reconciliation made the story even more compelling. The anniversary had already invited reflection on what the revolution meant after 50 years. Their deaths intensified that reflection. Americans could look backward to the fragile beginning and forward to an uncertain future. The day felt both triumphant and mournful. It became a national meditation on memory, age, and inheritance. James Monroe also died on the 4th of July. Monroe's death added another remarkable presidential connection to the anniversary. He was the last president who had also been a Revolutionary War veteran, which made his passing feel like another closing door on the founding era. Unlike Jefferson and Adams, he did not die on the 50th anniversary. Yet the date still drew attention because it linked him to the national birthday. Monroe had fought as a young officer, served in public life across decades, and occupied the presidency during a period often remembered for relative national confidence. His death on the 4th reinforced the idea that the holiday had an uncanny relationship with the early presidents. Americans noticed patterns like this because they were still shaping the mythology of the Republic. Dates mattered. Coincidences became stories. Stories became memory. Monroe's passing reminded citizens that the revolution was receding into history. The people who had experienced it directly were disappearing, leaving the holiday to carry their legacy. Calvin Coolidge was born on the 4th of July. Coolidge remains the only American president born on Independence Day. That fact gave his public image an unusual symbolic advantage. A president whose birthday matched the nation's birthday seemed almost naturally connected to old-fashioned patriotism. Coolidge himself was known for restraint, economy, and reverence for traditional civic ideals. The coincidence fit the way many supporters wanted to see him. It suggested simplicity, duty, and a deep tie to the Republic's inherited values. Of course, being born on a symbolic date does not determine a person's character or presidency. Yet politics thrives on images that are easy to remember. Coolidge's birthday made him part of the holiday's strange presidential pattern. The date joined private life to national ritual. Each year, the country celebrated independence, and his own birth was folded into the same calendar square. In a nation fascinated by founding memory, that alignment was irresistible. It turned biography into a kind of patriotic footnote. The holiday carries unusual presidential connections across American history. Independence Day has gathered presidential coincidences that feel almost scripted. Some leaders died on the date. One was born on it. Others used the anniversary for major speeches or public appearances. These connections gave the holiday a personal dimension inside the story of national leadership. Presidents are not monarchs, but they often become symbols of the Republic in public imagination. When their lives intersect with the 4th, the date seems to bind individuals to the larger American narrative. The pattern also shows how strongly people search for meaning in the calendar. A death or birth on an ordinary day might remain a fact. On the 4th, it becomes a story. Citizens and newspapers turned these coincidences into reflections on destiny, memory, and national character. Whether one sees chance or symbolism, the effect is the same. The holiday feels crowded with echoes. It is not only about the founders as a group. It is also marked by particular lives. The Declaration's parchment is now preserved under special protective conditions. The famous original is far too fragile to be treated like an ordinary document. Age, light, humidity, temperature, and handling can all damage parchment and ink. Today, it is protected in a carefully controlled encasement designed to slow decay as much as possible. The goal is preservation, not restoration to some imagined perfect state. The document has already lived a long and difficult life. It has been displayed, moved, exposed, and admired for generations. Modern conservation treats it as both artifact and evidence. Every choice must balance public access with survival. That balance is delicate because the Declaration is not merely old paper. It is a physical witness to a founding act. People travel to see it because standing near the object feels different from reading the words elsewhere. The protective glass, controlled atmosphere, and dim light all send the same message. Some national treasures survive only because care becomes part of patriotism. Faded ink makes the original Declaration harder to read today. The parchment Americans now revere does not look as bold as many expect. Time has softened it. Much of the writing is pale, and some words are difficult to make out. This fading happened because the document lived through conditions that modern conservators would never allow. It was displayed in ways that exposed it to light. It was moved and handled across generations. The ink and parchment aged, as all physical things do. The fading is sad in one sense, but powerful in another. It reminds viewers that history is not weightless. It survives through vulnerable materials. The words became world famous, yet the object carrying them remained fragile. Copies can preserve the text perfectly. The original shows the cost of time. When visitors see its faint lines, they are looking not only at the Declaration, but at centuries of national attention, imperfect care, and survival. Its weakness has become part of its emotional force. The National Archives displays the Declaration as a founding treasure. In Washington, the document is presented as part of a larger story of American constitutional government. Visitors encounter it alongside other central records of the nation's political identity. The setting encourages a kind of civic attention. People often speak more softly there. They lean forward. They study the faded words, even when they already know the most famous lines. The display turns a document into an experience of public memory. It also reflects a democratic idea. The records of government are not meant to belong only to officials or scholars. They belong to the people whose political community they helped shape. The archives protects the object, but it also makes it visible. That dual mission is essential. A hidden treasure cannot inspire public reflection. An unprotected treasure may not survive. The display asks visitors to consider both the power of the words and the responsibility of preserving them. The past is kept alive through care and access. Independence Hall became a shrine to American memory over time. The building's meaning changed dramatically after the founding era. At first, it was a practical civic structure where government work took place. Later generations transformed it into a sacred site of national remembrance. People visited not only to see rooms, but to feel close to decisive moments. Objects, architecture, and location became tools of memory. This transformation shows how nations create historic places. A room becomes important because people agree to treat it as a witness. Preservation efforts, ceremonies, guidebooks, and public storytelling all helped elevate the building's status. The site came to represent debate, risk, and the birth of Republican government. Visitors could stand where delegates had argued and imagine the uncertainty of the Summer of Independence. The building's later fame also shaped Philadelphia's identity as a city of origins. Independence Hall is powerful because it makes political history feel physically present. It turns an abstract founding into walls, windows, floors, and footsteps. The 4th shaped how Americans remember the Revolution itself. Anniversaries do not merely recall history. They select and organize it. The 4th focuses attention on the Declaration, which gives the Revolution a particular meaning. It emphasizes ideals, public language, and the moral case for independence. Other parts of the conflict can fade behind that focus. The Long War, battlefield suffering, loyalist experiences, indigenous diplomacy, economic hardship, and internal disagreement often receive less attention in holiday memory. This does not make the holiday false. It means the holiday is a lens. Through it, Americans see the Revolution as a story of declared principle. That lens has enormous power because it keeps the words of independence alive. It can also simplify a far more complicated struggle. Understanding this helps deepen the day rather than weaken it. The 4th is not the whole revolution. It is the doorway through which many people first enter it. What they find beyond that doorway depends on how closely they keep looking. Many communities read the Declaration aloud every Independence Day. This tradition keeps the document in the realm of sound, not only sight. A public reading allows the words to unfold as they were once meant to be heard. Listeners encounter the structure, the rhythm, and the force of the argument. Some passages feel familiar. Others surprise modern audiences because the full text is longer and more detailed than the famous lines suggest. Reading it aloud also makes the holiday less passive. People gather around language and give attention to the act that the anniversary marks. In some places, the reading is formal and solemn. In others, it is community-based and accessible. Either way, the custom reconnects celebration to text. Fireworks and food may dominate the day, but the reading returns people to the source. It reminds them that the holiday began with words carefully arranged to justify a dangerous choice. Hearing those words again can make the founding feel less distant. The holiday celebrates a beginning, not the revolution's final victory. Independence Day marks the announcement of a claim, not the moment that claim became secure. The war continued for years after the Declaration was adopted. Battles, defeats, alliances, endurance, and diplomacy still lay ahead. This distinction is important because it changes the emotional meaning of the holiday. The 4th honors a beginning made under uncertainty. It remembers a decision before success was guaranteed. That makes the anniversary more dramatic than a simple victory day. It asks us to imagine people committing themselves to a future they could not yet see. The celebration looks confident now because the outcome is known. At the time, confidence had to be chosen without proof. The new state still needed to survive military pressure and political strain. The holiday therefore captures the courage of starting. It is about crossing a threshold. Final victory would come later, but the 4th remembers the moment when Americans publicly declared what they intended to become. American independence was not fully secured until the Treaty of Paris. The Declaration announced separation, but international agreement ended the war and recognized the result. The Treaty of Paris came years later, after military struggle and diplomatic negotiation. Its importance is enormous because revolutions do not become secure through words alone. They need power, endurance, and recognition. The treaty forced Britain to acknowledge the United States as independent. It also set boundaries that shaped the new nation's future. Diplomats had to navigate European interests, wartime alliances, and competing ambitions. The final agreement transformed a revolutionary claim into an accepted political reality. This does not diminish the 4th. It places it within a longer arc. The holiday marks the bold announcement. The treaty marks the confirmation that the announcement had survived. Between them lay years of uncertainty. That gap is where much of the revolution's drama lives. Independence was first declared in language, defended in war, and secured through diplomacy. The nation's birth was not a moment. It was a process. The 4th honors ideals that Americans have repeatedly reinterpreted. The words attached to the holiday have never stayed still. Liberty, equality, consent, rights, and independence have been understood differently across generations. Early citizens argued over federal power. Abolitionists challenged slavery. Women's rights advocates questioned exclusion. Labor movements asked what freedom meant in the workplace. Civil rights leaders demanded that constitutional promises apply fully. Immigrants used the day to claim belonging. Veterans linked it to service and sacrifice. Each movement approached the 4th with its own urgency. That does not mean the holiday has no stable meaning. It means its meaning is powerful enough to be contested. The founding ideals became a common language through which Americans could argue. A weaker holiday might have remained ceremonial. The 4th remained alive because people kept returning to it with new questions. Reinterpretation is part of its history. The day invites celebration, but it also invites examination. Its ideals endure because they are not locked safely away from debate. Each generation has argued over what independence should mean. The word independence can point in many directions. For one generation, it meant separation from imperial rule. For another, it meant preserving the Union. For others, it meant freedom from slavery, equal citizenship, self-determination, economic security, or the right to dissent. These arguments are not distractions from the holiday. They are part of its life. A republic founded on public principles must keep asking how those principles apply. That is why the 4th can feel festive and serious at the same time. Beneath the celebration is a recurring national question. What kind of freedom are we honoring, and who gets to possess it? The answers have changed because the country has changed. New crises expose new meanings. New citizens bring new claims. Old words find new force. Independence is not only a past event. It is an idea Americans keep testing against reality. The holiday survives because it belongs to memory, but also to argument. The 4th of July is a birthday with a complicated soul. At first glance, the holiday seems simple. It is flags, fireworks, summer gatherings, and the anniversary of national independence. But beneath that familiar surface is one of the most layered stories in American history. It began with courage and uncertainty. It carried ideals that were larger than the society that proclaimed them. It became a ritual of unity, then a stage for disagreement. It welcomed celebration, but also demanded reflection. Its symbols grew over time. Its meaning widened as more people claimed the language of freedom for themselves. That complexity is not a weakness. It is the reason the day still matters. A simple birthday can be remembered and then forgotten. This one keeps asking questions. It asks what was promised. It asks what was denied. It asks what remains unfinished. The 4th is powerful because it holds pride and tension together. It is not only a date on the calendar. It is a living argument about America's beginning. And so, we come to the end of our journey through the history behind the 4th of July. Tonight, we followed a holiday back to its beginning. We found a story shaped by courage, argument, uncertainty, and hope. We saw how a decision made in a crowded room became a message carried across towns and fields. We watched a written declaration become a public ritual, then a national memory, then a question that each generation has had to answer again. The 4th of July is bright on the surface, with its flags, fireworks, music, and summer gatherings. But beneath that brightness is something deeper. It is the sound of voices reading dangerous words aloud. It is the image of ink fading on old parchment. It is the thought of people stepping into the unknown without knowing whether their new country would survive. And perhaps that is why the day still holds so much power. It celebrates a beginning, but not a simple one. It asks us to remember the promise of freedom and to notice how that promise has grown, struggled, and changed over time. If you enjoyed this gentle journey through history, you're welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps others find their way here too. And if you happen to still be awake, there will be another quiet history video waiting on the screen, ready to carry you a little farther. But for now, let the story settle. Let the noise of the day drift away. Let your shoulders soften and allow your breathing to slow. Imagine the last sparks of a distant firework fading into the night sky, leaving only stillness behind. You do not need to hold on to anything now. Just rest. Let your thoughts become light. Let the past grow soft at the edges. And let yourself sink gently into sleep. Sleep well, and good night.